All right, guys, we're back. I don't know what happened. We had some kind of a glitch. I thought maybe YouTube shut us down because they found out that Lee Priest was live with us, and they said, get him, get that guy out of here. Look,
it was John's fault.
A lot of heated, stuff is being said here, and some of this stuff is very relevant, to our bodybuilding world, and I think it's important that it gets out there. I feel like you were channeling the late great Victor Richards at some point.
What do you mean? What do you mean? Some of this is relevant. All of it is.
Well, it's look, you make points that are relevant, that you feel are important and that are relevant to you, but the truth is always somewhere in the middle, and everything's about compromise, Lee, because you can't have it your way all the time. Okay. There is a business aspect to the sport, and if we want the sport to continue into the future successfully without being shut down and being governed by drug testing and all these organizations that want to regulate, then things have to be done the right way. And I understand, sometimes when maybe the court of public opinion becomes, superior to maybe the court of logic. Okay, and so what you're saying is very logical. But at the same time, is it practical sometimes? And I understand what the original decision, but I also agree with you. At some point, they should have realized this is not the right thing to do. It's dragging on too long. Let's give this guy back his livelihood until his trial's over. And that, I think that's really the take-home message right there.
They should never have done it in the first place.
Well, you can't.
But you know what, John? It really wasn't the IFBB at first. It was AMI. They're the ones who
come on.
AMI canceled roading in the Olympia. Remember, it was 2 weeks before. It was Pecker.
And who runs the Olympia?
That was a David Pecker decision. Then the IFBB picked up after that. That's what.
And doesn't the IFBB have to sanction?
That was a David Pecker move, which is ironic coming from the guy who owned the National Enquirer, right?
Yes, but doesn't the IFBB have to sanction the Olympia? I don't care whose move it was. It's still an IFBB show.
The Olympia is a private show. They're the promoter. The promoter can say they don't want someone in the show if they want. If they don't want
and the IFBB then the IFBB can say we're not going to sanction your show, so it won't be the IFBB Mr. Olympia, so you can't put it on.
Look, the IFBB obviously agreed with what they said or what have happened, like you said. But the initial impetus and decision was from the AMI organization. Once the Olympia was over, and then Roden wanted to do, I believe, the Arnold Classic, right, John, or something like that, the following March, that's when the IFBB stepped in and said no. Because originally they had Roden on the poster, you remember?
Yep. Yeah, well, that's a huge failing on their part, and they should own up to it.
Yeah.
It's absolutely wrong, and I agree with Chris Aceto. It definitely, in my opinion, was a contributing factor to his demise.
Yeah, I think he was very
well. Like I said, it's like you mentioned. Now, if the IFBB cared about the athletes, they would drug test. But we know they're never going to do that because everyone likes to see the freaks.
No, you know what, Lee? You know why drug testing doesn't work? Because it's not fair. Because the people who are smart can beat the drug test, and the people who are dummies can't beat it. It's worse than not having drug testing because it gives the people who are in the know an advantage over the people who don't know how to beat the test.
What's it cost for a pro card these years now? $300 a year. I think it was $275 when I was. And how many pros are there? Over 1,000 at least. Yeah. And let's add in all the NPC people. You can't tell me that after all these years that they're never going to drug test. We know that. But apart from, you can't tell me that the IFBB couldn't have got together with some fucking medical thing and had fucking health insurance for the athletes or something like that, because that's not fair too, because some athletes can afford health insurance, some can't. So, there needs to be something done, or they can't get a top doctor, sports doctor on staff. That, this way you got to, some people hate.
Well, I've been talking about health screening. I want these athletes health screened and let them be told, hey, you're not healthy, based on this health screening.
There's not many sports that require you to pass.
Well, look at all these. Look at these NFL teams. NFL teams have their own doctors and all this sort of shit. So after all these years, the IFBB get a doctor that the athletes can trust, talk to, that knows everything about steroids, what it can do. Because normally your local GP hasn't got a fucking clue, and most bodybuilders don't want to tell their doctor what they're taking. They could hire a thing where twice a year even they can say, listen, going to be in Dallas or it's going to be here. If you're in New York or somewhere, you go see him and you got to go through him to get your blood work done. He's going to check you out and stuff like that. Have one doctor that the athletes can all trust and see and talk to. He can go to every show.
Remember they had Mauro Di Pasquale years ago? Or who used more? Vince McMahon had Mauro Di Pasquale on staff. And he was advising all the athletes. What you need is a basic list of health screening tests that people need to get done. And then those tests get submitted to a doctor who would interpret the test and talk to the athletes if something's wrong and help them to correct the test so that they get them into healthy ranges. And this should be provided via the IFBB. And I think if they did that, that would at least show that they care about the athlete's health and that it would prevent us from having fatalities that could have been avoided had someone got a cardiac CT scan or someone had checked their creatinine or checked their hemoglobin A1C and see how their blood sugar control is. So these are easy fixes, to do. And that's why I've been really advocating very hard. And I've been talking to Jim on the phone and telling him, look, Jim, this is something you guys can do. They don't have to pay for it, but at least put that out there. Make these athletes get these tests. Because you know what? Think about it. How many kids would go to the doctor if their parents didn't say you got to go for your annual physical? No one. No kid would go. Right? But the parents make them go, and then the kids find out if something's not working properly. It's the same thing. The organization is the parents of the bodybuilders, and they should say, you know what? We want our members, our kids, to be healthy. Here's the tests we want you to take, and if you come back and they're normal, you could compete for the year. That's how it should work, or somewhere in that vicinity.
Well, how many years did we compete before we even had a medical person backstage? It wasn't until people started dropping from diuretics that we actually had an ambulance type person backstage. It took years just to get that person backstage there. Yeah. And I was luckily they happened to be there at the time when Paul Dillette cramped up and stuff like that. But
that doctor friend was my mentor, Dr. Mike Kaufman. And
it was a shorter guy, wasn't he? Shorter.
He was like about 5'9", 5'10". I think he was you look at Warren Beatty, the guy. He was backstage because he was friends with Wayne D'Amelia, and he was Wayne's actually dermatologist, but he was very knowledgeable in bodybuilding, drugs, and all that stuff. He was the guy who really first introduced me to all that, and he was great to be backstage because you knew that if something went wrong, this guy can fix the problem.
Well, you know what could fix the problem too. Yes, like you said, if they wanted to protect their business model. So to me, it's the IFBB, it's bodybuilding. It's not going to be on CNN that Sean Roden competed like other things. But you know what, they could say, look, in the beginning, yes, we were trying to cover our ass, but they should come out and apologise and say what we did was wrong. Keeping him out that long was wrong. Now, yes, hindsight's 20/20, but after 2 years, 2.5 years, coming on 3 years, they should apologise for doing that because, yes, in the beginning you can say, okay, let's just cover our ass in case it goes to court in 6 months or 8 months. But once it dragged on, and Sean was at the contest. He was there supporting athletes. He was there anyway. So what are you going to say? Oh, my God, they let a accused rapist come into the expo and this and that and go backstage and this. Like, come on. It's like he was there anyway. What's the difference letting him be on stage doing what he loved, his livelihood and shit like that? So
I agree 100% with you, Lee, in the sense that after that initial suspension, because they knee-jerk responded, they should have said, you know what, let's let them compete until after the trial's over.
You agree with that? I know John's going to agree with this, but will you agree with this also?
What?
Sean Ray's a cunt. John, let me see your hand, John. You agree, John?
You know what Sean's problem is? Sean actually is a good information.
Sean is
Sean's problem.
Sean's a good information provider, but then he has this jealousy, underlying jealousy, where he's got to throw digs in on people, even after they die, and that's what rubs people the wrong way. I don't know why he needed to throw these. First of all, they weren't even accurate. Sean Roden never used drugs. Matter of fact, he wouldn't even drink alcohol. Okay, he wouldn't even. Guy Cisternino was saying he would try to get him to smoke a joint with him. He wouldn't even do it. So completely false.
Then you should have cut. Then you should have cut that bit out. Should have cut that bit out.
Right. He was natural for forever. Sean Roden.
Yeah. So my point is that why Sean Ray needed to throw the digs in on him that that he didn't even know to be true. It was like he had to badmouth him a little bit, to make himself feel better about himself. all the other information we provided in that TV show was really good. And so I don't know why he needed to do that, and it rubbed people the wrong way. But he does that all the time. I mean, he put up a Grim Reaper after Dallas McCarver died to say, look, I predicted this. No one wants to hear that when someone dies.
Well, the sad thing is, when Sean dies, you're not going to hear people speaking highly of him like they do Sean Road, and you'll probably be like, good riddance. So it's like the thing with Sean is he always goes for these drug things. Like I said, he did it with me, saying I was living on the streets. I was a drug addict. Where'd that come from? I don't know. He just tried that same bullshit with Sean Roden. He's tried it with so many other people going, look, that Cormier. Look at Cormier's fucking documentary that they did. One of the best ever. Yeah. You've seen it, haven't you, Dave? But every time they go to Sean on that, all Sean does is doesn't talk about Chris's training and how hard he trained and his great physique. Chris had demons. He was always doing party drugs. Chris was doing drugs. Like, we know. But every time the camera went on him, he's just throwing fucking Chris under the fucking bus every fucking time. So there must be something in Sean's past or something like the pot calling the kettle black where he's had fucking drug issues or he's still on fucking drugs because that's all he seems to go to is these drugs. It's like,
well, it's the old, like, if I make everyone else seem worse, I look better type of thing. And I don't know why he needs to do that because he's achieved a lot in bodybuilding, in business.
Well, as I said,
you might not like the guy.
Well, as a bodybuilder,
he's got an opinion, but he likes to put people down, and I don't know what the reason for that is.
As a bodybuilder, like I said, you can't fault him. He had one of the greatest physiques ever, and I've always said that. As a bodybuilder, he's one of the greatest. But as a human being and a person, say it, John, he's a...
Yeah. I don't know. I don't even know what his... I don't know what his
like I said,
it's like,
yeah, but...
I want to just go back to Victor Richards, obviously, because this was originally... I guess it's kind of like Iron Rage and tribute to Victor Richards all in one since we got Lee here. But
well, it all started when Victor channeled himself through me. So
that's right.
Victor, leave now, please. We're going to talk about you.
The funniest story, one of the funniest stories, I wanted to get him here today to join us. I don't know what happened to Valentino. He's missing in action. But I love the story that Greg tells, and we've all heard the story a million times, but maybe people who are tuning in today, where Victor Richards, Greg used to spot Victor Richards at Gold's Gym Dennis when Greg was a young kid. And, he was like enamored with Victor because he was so big. And Greg would have to spot him. And only Greg spotted him for some reason. Victor liked the way he spotted him. But Victor would oil up his arms, his whole body, when he go into the gym. And so when Greg would try to spot him under his elbows, his hands would slip off of Victor's arms because there was so much oil on there. So Greg didn't want to say anything to Victor because he didn't want to get yelled at. So Greg got these sponges that he used to use. Greg would, rather than get like any kind of wrap, Greg would train with these sponges, and he would never change the sponges. They were these dirty ass sponges, and he would put the sponges under Victor's elbows and spot him from the sponges so that his hands wouldn't slip off. And
I remember that.
To hear Greg tell the story, it's absolutely hysterical. So when I confronted Victor on one of the interviews I did with him, I said, "Do you remember when Greg Valentino?" And he was pretending like he didn't really remember. I said, "He used to spot you at the gym. He was a short guy. Yeah. And he used to use these sponges on the." He completely said he didn't remember. He didn't know what we were talking about. It never happened, he said. And we know that Greg tells a story with such detail that there's no way that story was made up. But it's truly one of the funniest stories of all time because I can completely see Greg in the gym with Victor, right?
Victor used to train with this giant Samoan dude who was just giant. There was really no form to him. He was just big. And they would take the baby oil bottle and just squirt it on their back.
Oh, really? Yeah. Wouldn't he get all over the benches, John?
Oh, it was everywhere. It was disgusting. And it was just the two of them. They had all this oil all over the place.
And why would they do that?
Now, John, they highlight the muscle. Just it looks good.
Victor, as Lee said, Victor was a character. He was definitely things. He marched to the beat of a different drum. Let's just say.
But he was very strong, right? He was very strong too.
Oh, insane! He would incline bench 405, just pushing him out. I mean, it was unbelievable.
But I think too much just be his skin because I used to train with an Islander type guy, and before the workouts too, he loved the moisturizer. It wasn't oil, but just moisturizer. So like Nivea or anything like that, he would put that much on and same thing, he'd be glistening, and I'd try and spot him. Hands would slide off.
You needed the sponges. You should have done the sponges.
Yeah. Well, imagine, look, today's technology, if Greg had those sponges now, imagine the DNA we could extract from that.
Those sponges were so disgusting that I still remember it. I can still see them, how grimy and yellow brown they were. Dirty. And you're looking at this thinking, that is the dirtiest thing I've ever seen. Would I not want to touch it? I didn't know who was worse off, the guy who had it in his hands or the guy who had it under his elbows. So it was just absolutely.
Yeah. Can you imagine if you would have cultured that for bacteria in there?
Oh my God! You could have grown a forest in a petri dish overnight with that shit.
Imagine.
And think about it. Greg used it when he worked out. So those sponges touched everything in the gym. So probably that bacteria was covering everything in that gym over there.
You imagine.
Those sponges, if you did like an Ancestry.com DNA test on them, there'd be Victor Richards, there'd be Arnold Schwarzenegger, Lou Ferrigno, because they've touched every piece of equipment in the gym. Yeah. That sponge is like the encyclopedia of bodybuilding. It's got
they can find out who killed, what's his name, Jimmy Hoffa with those sponges probably.
They could probably find Jimmy Hoffa.
It's like, imagine if you did that, imagine leaving that sponge at a crime scene, run a DNA test on that. They'll be like, Jesus Christ, we've come up with 200 people from this one sponge. It's like...
and 78 different drugs were involved.
Yeah, but like I said, I still remember that time when, I mentioned it before. He used the C word, but I'll say pussy. But when Victor was walking out, I just happened to be talking to Ed Connors near, where you come out the front door and Billy Smith had their daughter go into their little training facility, and and you had a table there. I was talking to Ed. Ed, obviously, Victor didn't see Ed. His woman's coming out all in a tight, what was it back then, that active where they had hot skins, and granted, you could see everything because of the light colours. Victor in his voice, nice cunt, or show us your cunt. It's one of those words, and then Ed says to me, you can see why we have to suspend him from the gym. So yes, it's similar to me that if you see, I wouldn't do that in person. I might think that nice, but Victor was one of those. He'll just say it. So, and Ed goes, that's why he gets suspended from the gym. Now I'm going to have to talk to him about that.
Ed loved. I'm convinced of it that he loved the drama in the gym. Even though you would think, oh, I got to deal with this guy and arguments and fighting with Titus, and people always get kicked out of the gym. I think Ed secretly loved all the drama that went on there. I think it added another element of like making Golds like something that everyone wanted to talk about, right?
Golds was like Golds back then in the 90s. It was like having 12 TVs on, and something good was on every channel, on every one of them. And you didn't want to miss anything. And it's there was the drama. It was the people from other countries. It was the crazy fighting and competitions and movie
stars, athletes. It was like everything. Like you could just sit up there. My favorite thing was those bikes. The bikes in the front room, the ones above the toilet and the ones at the back. You could just sit there. I'd say I'm going to do 40 minutes of cardio. I'd be there for an hour and a half because I just start watching something and I'm like, and it just goes on, and time would go that quick. But occasionally I'd always see Ed smiling because remember in the front room, you had that Golds, that like it looked like a glass window with the Golds logo on it, but it was like a two-way type thing. And if the light was on the other side, you could just see Ed standing there looking down on the gym floor, just watching people. Yeah,
it was definitely a show.
Didn't you say Victor Richards had a run-in once with Lyle Alzado, John?
I don't know.
Oh, maybe I'm mistaking it then.
Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe that could have been Greg. I think.
Or was it Mike Christian? Maybe.
I'm not sure.
It was probably Mike Christian.
Didn't Mike Christian say something to Victor Richards once or something like that?
Yeah, that was probably more.
I seem to remember that. Yeah.
Yep. That would have been, man, if that escalated, that would have been a war to remember.
Yeah.
Even getting escalating with Lyle Alzado, he would go off depending what time of the month it was. Wasn't Ted Dixon? Ted Dixon was always good friends with Lyle Alzado and that.
Yeah.
Well, Ted Dixon would swear that Lyle Alzado was gay, but Ted Dixon thought everyone was gay, though.
No, Ted, when I used to have a thing with Ted, and this is the thing because my father was gay and, Ted knew the whole story. And Ted would always say to me, he'd be like, I'll see that boy over there, Lee. Because you know how he'd always have that little bit of a, that boy over there, I've been with him. He might look like he's straight, Lee, but... So I'd be sitting there, we'd be having these conversations, and it'd be like, oh, there's such and such. Yeah, when he come from Germany, let me tell you, I had to pay a few of his bills. So I'm thinking, fuck, he's going to hit on me. But then he turns to me, he swear to God, one day he said to me, you don't have to worry, Lee. You don't have to worry. Your father being gay and that. He goes, I'll never hit on you. He goes, I feel like your father.
Ted was the first person I met when I get to Gold's Gym. I walked in, he was like, woof. Who are you?
Yeah, he was definitely on the lookout all the time.
Yeah. And it's always funny too because his partner Ray was such he's real big. Remember, was it Ray? He's the personal trainer guy.
Ray was the tough-looking guy. Yeah, you'd never think he was gay.
Yeah. And it was so funny because I remember this one time I overheard these people talking like, oh, yeah, that guy's gay there and this one's gay. And, oh, yeah, they point to Ray going, yeah, he's gay. Look at him. I said, why don't you go over there and tell him? Why don't you go why don't you go up to Ray and just say that, hey? Because like I said, he's like, he was at least 6'1", 6'2", wasn't he? And like this big,
he was enormous,
solid, but yeah. It's like, I wouldn't be going to say it to his face too much, but it's like, but Ted too, he was always in shape. He had those like big buggy eyes, but I think he must have had high thyroid or on-growth hormone all the time because he was always super lean as anything.
Ted had the greatest growth hormone connections of all time, I got to tell you.
And another one, no matter what time you went to the gym, I remember you talking about it. I remember Don Ross, because someone sent me a magazine cover the other day and where it said Lee Priest suspended. It was the same issue where it says Don Ross died. And it was like, Ted Dixon was like Don Ross, no matter what time you went there, they were always at the gym. And I was laughing at the story John was telling because he would always get so in your face, Don Ross, when he was talking like, Lee, come here. Every time he talked, he'd start spitting at you because he'd going, look at that guy over there. Because he'd stand there in his tight black tank top, he was always pumped up, Don. Look at that guy over there. These fucking pencil necks coming into the fucking gym. Fucking pencil necks everywhere. Fuck. And he starts spitting again. He get all worked up. That's his favourite thing. Fucking pencil necks. Look at him. And then he was so hyper. And like, crazy, done up like that. But yet Rita, his wife, was total opposite. She was like calm and quiet.
He looked like he was on 40 ripped fuels at all times. Yeah, right?
Oh. He was always the color of... He was always the color of raw liver.
And like it was on like if you just took a bottle of ephedra, veins were popping. He goes, this and that. It's fucking. Look at him on that machine over there. You fucking pencil neck. He's not going to do anything for you. Fuck off out the gym.
How come no one calls anyone pencil necks anymore, John? That's a great fucking.
Do you remember that? You remember that contraption he used to bring to the gym that was to a plank that he put his neck in?
You got to train neck. Yeah. That's what he told me. He goes, I like you, Palumbo, because you train neck. You got that big neck. Got to train neck.
And when he say traps, you'd spit traps. Yeah. But he put the towel on his head too. Put the towel on his head first. He looked like an Arab. And then he put that big thing on. Then he.
The funny thing is, they had a neck machine at Gold's, right? They had that old Nautilus.
Yeah, that one you.
They did, but this thing it wasn't like bringing a pair of straps with you. It was like a fucking big thing. It was like and he had to drag it behind him across the parking lot. It made this racket, and it was big. And he could stand on it with I go, why are you bringing this to the gym? Why don't you just leave it home and do it?
He wanted to show off to everyone.
And he would start describing something, he would be crushing your skull with his hands like this.
Yeah.
You got to get that motivation.
I'm surprised that Bleckman probably paid him, but he probably thought Bleckman was a pencil neck, right?
Oh my God.
Oh my God.
I could tell you a few stories.
Don Ross is Blackman's wet dream. That's what Blackman wanted to look like in a tank top. But like, it's true what he said, though. He would always get expressive with his hands. His hands would come out like claws. He's fucking ringing. He's fucking stuck doing this. Yeah, look at him. And his face would get all screwed up. He'd get like so into it. Like, it's almost like, it's like
Ross.
Remember that TV show he used to do, that talk show with that ultra conservative white-haired guy, Wally something, Wally.
Oh, yeah. And the other guy was very quiet and calm, that guy.
Yeah, and then Don would be on with the mohawk, Don the Ripper. And his name was the Ripper. He didn't even go by
yeah. The Ripper Ross.
Wally George. That was it. The Wally George show. Tyler, do your thing.
First, why would he go on the Wally George show? What would they talk about?
He was a regular guest. It was, because he was such a flaming liberal the other way, and it was just comical to what they would get into.
So they would argue politics, John?
It was all politics. Yeah.
Oh my God! How did he get himself on that show? That's.
I have no idea.
They probably thought he was a nutcase. They probably saw him in the gym. That's why, right?
Because ratings. Don Ross was like a constantly evolving car wreck. You just couldn't take your eyes or your attention off him for 1 second.
Imagine him on the It's Not Politics show,
right?
Or actually, imagine Don Ross actually today in this cancel culture and everything else that's going on.
He found the show.
Media.
I can't believe it.
Oh, well, there he is. That's him with the space shuttle. That's him.
Hey,
where's
Biden?
No sound.
Well, we don't need the sound, but
Wally George.
We don't want to.
Here's Don. He's going to introduce him. Look at that! Look at that dude.
Just like he's running for president. Oh, look at Don. Looks like the perfect guest, doesn't he? Look at him.
With
he
the
looks like Mr. G.
biceps.
John, he looks like Mr. G.
Mr. G and Mr. T put together.
Yeah.
Should just turn the sound on there. What are they doing? Security.
It's Mr. G.
These shows were priceless. Absolutely priceless.
And this guy is so straight-laced, the Wally George.
Oh, my God. If the sound was on, you'd be crying right now. I'm telling you.
Oh, my God. This is great.
Yeah.
Anyway.
People need to go watch some of them for a good laugh. And,
yeah. How about I can remember that name? I can't remember where I put my fucking peas, but I can remember Wally George.
You must have loved the show. That's great. That's awesome.
Now, when you say Wally George, I go back all of a sudden, because we're talking about Ted Dixon, I go back to George Zachary with his donut that he used to sit on his hemorrhoids at the firehouse when he used to try and get the other bodybuilders to do stuff for him. Hi, Lee. See that one over there? But he only ever liked the black bodybuilders. He never liked the white ones. He only liked the black, he told me. He goes, I love them young black boys when they come into the gym here and they need help and I help them out. And I'm helping that one over there. And that is, he'd sit there on his little donut cushion. He goes, I got to use this. I got really bad hemorrhoids and stuff. I'm thinking, I wonder why.
Hey, some of the people in the chat want to know, like, what were some of Victor's impressive lifts that he did at the gym?
Oh, I remember seeing him just almost like Ronnie. He had probably wasn't his heaviest lift, but I remember seeing him in the rack at Gold's with 7 plates on the squat, going up and down like most people go up and down with bloody.
Really?
2 plates.
Well, you could see he looked like he squatted. His legs were sick.
Oh, his legs were massive.
Yeah.
Yep.
And calves too. Like he had all of it. Like his legs. There's a couple of shots of him. There's a couple of famous ones where he's standing in those hot skins clothing and that, and like just the legs on him were like tree trunks. I mean, he did hammies, quads, calves, everything. I mean, everything was just like crazy on him.
Yeah, he had huge legs, man. Wow.
Huge. He didn't pull it in a vacuum with that size.
He swears to me he never used growth hormone at all. Never. He said.
How many guys his size can do a vacuum like that?
I know. It's crazy, right?
Insane. Look at that.
What a
that
shame
looks
he
like
never really
just
competed.
looking at that bad video there. It looks like a massive bulked up flex wheeler.
Yeah, massive.
Crazy.
Yeah, but some, like I said, his legs were just like they would have had to be at least 36 or more
Look at
when
that
they
picture of him
inches.
sitting down, leaning over like that. See that black and white, Tyler? Right there, yeah. That's a crazy looking shot right there. Just like,
yep. Look at that. They'd load up the leg press with all.
And that wasn't even at his biggest. See, he still looks pretty young there. Like, I mean, there's a couple of shots where he was in the gym. They did the article once. I think he was with David Paul in some of them, but he had on the hot skins thing, and just the quads on him in these couple of those shots were just like, you're just like, wow. And that's when everyone used to say, imagine, hey, look, there's Renegade Lee Priest there. Renegade number 7. What's Lee doing on that page?
Oh, yeah, what are you doing? Renegade muscle, yeah.
Oh, Lee huge in that shot.
Hey, I'm on Victor Richards' page.
He had a pretty big neck, too. I got news for you. You know, Don Ripper would have loved his neck.
Oh, yeah.
That double bicep shot there in the middle, in the red posing trunks, go back. He had a couple of shots like that. That one there, yeah. He was like, there's a couple of shots like that. That's not where he looks his bigger. There's a couple like that where he's bigger and his legs almost look double that size later on. Because everyone used to always imagine if he competed. But the sad thing was I always thought if he did compete and got second or third, he would have lost that aura about him.
Yeah. I think that's why he didn't do it. Whose victory shot was better, Victor Richards or Sergio Oliva?
Lee Priest.
Say what? Priest.
Sergio. I think Sergio. No one can beat Sergio doing it, I think.
Yeah.
Sergio Jr. actually hits it pretty
yeah, he does it good, yes.
I think Sergio's shot was so impressive because his waist was teeny, tiny for a big guy.
Mm-hmm.
He had such small waist. Wow. Well, Victor Richards is going to be missed. Obviously, he was one of the myths. I always say there's several myths in bodybuilding, and he was definitely one of those like unicorns out there that you almost weren't sure if he really was in the sport. That's why I had to get you guys who actually saw him in the gym, because he didn't compete. There wasn't that much documentation of him. We see the same pictures over and over and over again because he didn't take that many, and he was like a larger than life character back in the I guess 80s and 90s, and he kind of moved back home and he kind of disappeared. You know, we had him on the show a couple times over the last 10 years, but by and far he was pretty quiet after that, and just kind of I don't know what happened. I don't know if anyone knows what happened. So if we get any news as far as the cause of death, we'll keep you guys updated.
No, well, it's like I said, it's strange. Like I said, looking at that latest picture of him, he looks super healthy. It looks like he's.
Yeah, I wonder if he lost the weight because because he was told by a doctor to lose it, or if he just changed what he was looking to do with himself. But it's a shame to lose anyone. I don't want to see anyone go.
I know what to do. Look, we can't speculate on what happened and stuff like that. Look, just contact Sean Ray. I'm sure it was recreational drug use. Sean Ray will know for sure. Just ask Sean, because he knows.
I wonder if Victor knew when he was taking this picture, basically mourning the death of Sean Roden. I wonder if he knew that he wasn't going to be around for a long time. At that point.
Well, who knows too? Who knows? Like you said, who knows that? Because last interview you did with him, he's still pretty big and solid, and then you look at him now, it looks like he's trimmed down for a reason. Who knows that he might have had a condition, whether it be kidneys or liver or something. The doctor said, hey, you got to drop some weight, and he just never mentioned it. But it's sad because, like I said, he was a character, and it's always sad when you see the characters of the sports that sort of pass on like that, and assholes like Sean Ray still carry on. But
when you look at that picture too, he actually still looks pretty damn good. Look, he's got delts and arms and pecs and stuff like that. He's not small in that picture by any means,
Right.
He's
56 years old, for God's sakes. He looks like he's about 35 in there, in that picture.
Looks like he's getting ready for a movie, like he's dieted down for a movie or something. It's like
him and Aaron Baker.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Aaron's still amazing too. But let's wrap this up.
Even on that last interview you did with Victor, wasn't he even talking about? He was even maybe thinking about doing a comeback. He wanted to compete.
Yeah, I never really can read him because I don't know. I never knew when he was breaking my balls or if he was telling me the truth. He kind of always left it kind of open-ended, everything. So Victor, can you definitively say, are you coming back or you're not? Well, let me give you the hype. He would give me a Kai Green answer, almost, you know.
He'd give you a Kai Green answer.
Yeah, Kai Green might have learned his interview techniques from Victor Richards. It's possible, you know.
And now I'm going to give Tyler homework tonight. Go get that Sean Ray interview and just leave the bit in about the medical testing and that, and the rest of it throw it on the floor where he deserves.
All right.
You're welcome.
We're going to wrap up. Thank you all for joining us live. Hopefully this gave people a little bit more peace. And, you know, look, it's hard. You know, I the other day I was doing the show, with the Sean Roden show, the tribute show with Chris Aceto and Stan and Brad Rowe and Guy Cisternino and Sergio Oliva Jr. and Psycho Lewis. And you know what? I started getting, like, I started getting palpitations in my heart, and I realized I was having an anxiety attack because it was so, these guys were so emotional. They were so upset. And the reality of it kind of, you know, here I am. I'm trying to be the moderator, and I'm trying to suppress, obviously, my own emotional involvement. And I was actually having an anxiety attack from it. And you know what?
Oh, well, like I said,
it's normal, guys. I just want to tell people out there, it's normal to feel sympathetic pain or to feel anxiety, because you know what? We could all see ourselves in that same position.
But
that George Peterson, that John Meadows, that Victor Richards, that Sean Roden found themselves in, that Billy Smith. And that's why it hits home and why it scares the crap out of you. But you know what, guys? Don't take your health for granted. Get your health checks. That's the take-home message. I'll keep repeating it over and over and over. I don't care how many times I got to say it.
Well, you could feel it. You could feel it too, because those people were so close to Sean. Chris Aceto, Stan, and Guy. And that, like you said, Guy's the godfather of the child and stuff. And I think not only could you feel their pain and hurt, but you know, after what Sean said, just watching that, I could feel the anger coming out. That not like anger. It's almost like they can't believe that someone would say that about someone who they know so well. And what he said's the total opposite of this guy they knew. You could just feel that hurt and anger coming out. Look, I would. If all those guys happen to be at a bodybuilding show and Sean's there, I wouldn't want to be in Sean's shoes. Put it that way.
You know, a lot of those guys texted me after the show and they said, you know, Dave, we were sorry we kind of attacked you. But I said, no, it's okay. I said, I'm a big boy. I know how to interview people. I said, you know what? You were right. And I didn't think Sean was going to do that. I thought Sean wanted to legitimately do a show on health. And I felt that, you know, the IFBB wanted that put out there so we can really tell these people, hey, look, guys, don't take it for granted. Don't live with your head in the sand. Get health checks, you know.
Where's Bob? Where's Bob Ciccarello? He's the athlete's rep. Why isn't he out talking about this?
We get him on the show next. See what he says.
The voice of bodybuilding.
All right, let's wrap this thing up. Thank you, Lee, for waking up early, and John for joining us today and sharing all your stories of Victor Richards. And thank you guys for joining us live. For now, I'm Dave Palumbo with another RX Muscle news update. We send our prayers and condolences out to the family of Victor Richards.